Everyone feared her hunger, but I gave her what she needed most. The crash on Virel 9. The warning sirens blared across Virel 9's mining colony. Just after the third moonrise, orange dust rose like smoke as workers abandoned drills and scanners, their faces tight with fear. Above the copper hills, a fireball streaked across the sky, trailing black vapor, before crashing into the ravine near Sector Delta. Inside the infirmary tent, Dr. Jonah Kalis paused mid-suture. The sirens faded, replaced by panic chatter. On the emergency channel, unidentified vessel, not human, possible Nixeri signature. Jonah tensed. He remembered the briefings. Nixeri were not just aliens. They were predators, pale-skinned, black-eyed beings who survived on biofluids, particularly blood. Once, they'd been allies in the war against the Thrask Dominion, but genetic corruption had turned them into feared pariahs. No one had seen one in years. Until now. Seal the quarters, a voice shouted outside. Jonah finished stitching the wounded worker's arm, cleaned his tools in silence, then stepped outside. The air was thick with dust and paranoia. Militia volunteers clustered around armored transports, plasma rifles loaded and cocked. Over the comms, a mining foreman shouted about locking down food storage and bunkers, but Jonah wasn't looking at them. His eyes turned toward the direction of the crash. His stomach twisted, not from fear, but from something else, a whisper of curiosity, a strange pull he couldn't explain. That night, while others huddled in shelters, Jonah took his medical pack and slipped away, heading toward the ravine. He was no soldier, but he'd treated enough battlefield wounds to know that crash survivors didn't have long in this cold. The impact site still glowed faintly. Metal shrapnel steamed in the dirt. A jagged tear split the side of the downed craft, sleek and alien, etched with curved silver markings. Then he saw her. Curled in a coil of wires and bent alloy was the figure of a woman, or something woman-like. Her skin shimmered pale blue under the twin moons, her black hair fanned around her shoulders like ink. But it was her eyes that stopped him, glowing faintly, like coals, half-flitted and hollow with exhaustion. Jonah approached slowly, hands raised. "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't respond. Her breathing was shallow. Her body trembled, not from cold, but from something deeper, withdrawal. "Nixeri," he murmured, and her eyes flicked to him, pupils dilating. She flinched, baring fangs, but not in a threat, more like instinct. "I know what you are," Jonah said gently. "I know what you need." He knelt beside her, opened his med pack, and scanned her vitals with a handheld unit. Her system was in total collapse. Hunger, cellular degeneration. Her body was failing from lack of sustenance. Jonah stared at his wrist, then at the slender extraction port he used for transfusions. He hesitated, then unbuckled the tool, pressed it to his arm, and extracted a controlled sample. He held the vial to her lips. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she sniffed sharply. Her trembling hand rose. She drank. The change was subtle. Her eyes cleared slightly. Her breathing slowed. A flush returned to her cheeks. She collapsed back, lips parting in a faint sound that might have been a thank you. Jonah sat beside her and whispered, "You're safe now." He stayed there until dawn, his coat wrapped around her, watching as the stars faded into sunrise, and the colony's drones began their search patterns. Back at the camp, panic turned to fury when patrols discovered a missing medic and signs of unauthorized movement. Near the crash, the colony's overseer, Tanis Droll, pounded his desk. "If that creature survives, we'll have a riot on our hands. We have families here, miners, children. We cannot afford sympathy." But sympathy had already taken root in Jonah Kalis. He returned just before noon, gaunt and silent. Infirmary. Staff asked questions, but he waved them off. He said nothing about the Nixeri woman hidden in the caves near the ravine. Nothing about the new pulse of life in her body or the way she had clutched his sleeve before he left. He only whispered her name once under his breath, Naira. The thirst beneath the skin. Jonah returned to the cave the next evening with a heavier med pack and a racing heart. He wasn't sure what to expect. Naira dead, gone, or feral with hunger. But when he pushed past the jagged rocks and ducked into the shadows, she was there, awake, sitting upright, watching, She hadn't tried to escape or attack. She could have, but she hadn't. You came back, she said, voice low and hoarse, but clear. Jonah knelt beside her. You needed more fluid. You still do. Her eyes flicked to the vials in his hand. You're a medic. Why risk yourself for me? I saw someone in pain. That's enough. She laughed once, a quiet, bitter sound. That's what they all say before they run. He didn't answer. Instead, he unsealed another vial and offered it to her. Naira stared at it, then slowly, deliberately, pushed it away. I don't want processed blood anymore. Jonah frowned. It's compatible. Keeps you stable. She leaned closer, voice barely above a whisper. But it's not real, not alive. There was a pause. The cave was silent except for the distant wind rushing over stone. Jonah looked at his wrist, then at her. His pulse beat steadily. You're asking to feed directly. Naira looked away. No, I'm saying I need to remember what it's like to feel, to not be just hunger. But I won't force it, not again. Her voice broke at the end, and Jonah saw something in her, not a predator, but a prisoner. Of biology, of memory, of war. Then take it, he said quietly, on one condition. You stop seeing yourself as a monster. She turned to him, wide-eyed. You don't know what I've done. I don't need to, he replied, rolling up his sleeve. Start here. Naira moved slowly. Her cool fingers gripped his arm, delicate yet trembling. Her lips brushed his skin. The bite was almost painless. And then a warmth spread through Jonah's body, deeper than pain, deeper than sensation. For a moment, their minds touched like two chords resonating across silence. He saw flickers of her memories, silver cities burning, a sibling's scream, cold labs where their bodies were remade into weapons. She saw him too, craters full of ash, an empty house on earth, a grave marked only by a single pendant buried in snow. When she pulled back, Jonah was pale but conscious. Naira's expression had changed, no longer guarded, but stunned. You let me in, she whispered. You needed more than blood, he said weakly. You needed someone to see you. She looked away, ashamed. I've fed before, but never like that. Jonah nodded. You saw my memories, yes. Then you know why I came back. Naira sat beside him, knees pulled up. You lost your family in the siege of Corrin's Vale. He nodded. I lost mine in the labs that followed. They burned our empathy out with splicing, tried to make us perfect soldiers. The hunger was the price. Then let's find a way to make it mean something, Jonah said. Something new. But their fragile moment was shattered by a crackle of static. Jonah's communicator hissed, and a voice barked through. Search team reporting in. We're detecting residual biosigns near Sector Delta. Locking on thermal. Full sweep in 2 hours. He paled. They're getting closer. Naira stood. You need to leave. If they find me, I won't let them, Jonah said, rising slowly. But we need a plan. Back at the colony, Overseer Tanis Droll was preparing for a public address. Holo banners flashed images of the crash, warning citizens of an active predator threat. Soldiers patrolled the corridors. Drones scanned every pass. And in a small, flickering shelter deep beneath the ravine, Naira paced restlessly. I can't keep hiding, she said. They'll find me. Jonah nodded. Then we stop running. We make them see who you really are. How? He turned the old med scanner over in his hand. We give them proof. Your genome. Your memories. We show them what they did to your kind. Naira looked hesitant. You'd stake your life on them listening. No, Jonah said softly. I'm staking it on hope. When the truth bleach footage played across every screen in the colony, the mess halls, control towers, even the sleeping quarters, Dr. Strauss's voice echoed through the speakers. Calm and clear, this data shows a controlled, consensual feeding by subject Naira Nixeri female. No signs of neural override, no predatory aggression. Emotional transfer detected. Vital signs stable. This is not a monster. This is a conscious, moral being in pain. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Overseer Tanis Droll's face turned from pale to furious. This is manipulation, he shouted, fabricated by a desperate traitor. Jonah, still held between the guards, raised his voice. Then test me, right now. Skin my brain. My blood prove me wrong. For a moment, silence. Held, then, reluctantly, Droll signaled to a medical officer. The skin was quick. It revealed no trauma, no suppression chemicals, no parasitic influence. Just elevated oxytocin. Shared neural echoes. Connection. She didn't hurt me, Jonah said. She chose not to. The crowd murmured again. Some faces shifted in certainty. Sympathy, even guilt. Others hardened. Droll clenched his jaw. It doesn't matter what this one Nixari is. Her kind remain dangerous. This will not end with sympathy. It ends with containment. He turned to the guards. Find the creature. Terminate on sight. Jonah was confined to quarters. But Naira had already fled. He had made sure of that, leaving a coded trail to an old ventilation shaft leading deep into the colony's abandoned aquifer tunnels. She waited there now, crouched between rusted pipes and moss-slick walls, listening to the boots echoing above. When Jonah finally returned bruised, silent, she stood quickly. They didn't believe you? He managed a bitter smile. Some did. Others, not yet. Naira closed her eyes. It was foolish to think I could be anything more than a shadow to them. No, Jonah said. You've already become more. You made them think. They'll still come. I know. He pulled a wrapped bundle from his coat. Inside was a small, portable data node. This has Strauss's full report, genetic history, evidence of the experiments done to your species during the War of Fractures, names, dates, locations. If you get this to the Galactic Ethics Council, they'll have no choice but to act. Naira stared at it. You want me to run alone? I want you to survive. You're more than this colony, Naira. You're proof of what was done and what can still be healed. Her voice cracked. What? About you? Jonah stepped closer. If I go with you, they'll hunt us both forever. If I stay, maybe I can buy you time. She gripped his hand tightly. I won't forget this. I won't forget you. Jonah's throat tightened. Don't let them turn you back into what they fear. Keep choosing. Naira's lip trembled. Then she pulled him close and kissed him deep and full of all the things words couldn't carry. Then she ran. It didn't take long for the Overseer's drones to trace Jonah's misdirection. The aquifer tunnels were flooded with pulse lights and sonic scanners, but by then, Naira had already breached the surface, sprinting through the black hills toward the emergency uplink station abandoned, but still functional. The wind howled around her. Her lungs burned. Her skin blistered under the unfiltered starlight. But she didn't stop. She jammed the node into the console. Her fingers danced across the ancient keys. Data streamed upward, encoded, mirrored, and sent into the council's long-range net. By the time the first hunter drones spotted her, it was too late. The truth was out. In the colony's council chamber, Overseer Droll slammed his fist against the wall screen. Cut the transmission. Strauss stood calmly beside him. Too late. The council will receive the report in less than 12 hours. I've confirmed relay beacons engaged. Droll turned to Jonah, who had just been released by the guards under council orders. You'll doom this colony to conflict. No, Jonah said. You already did when you decided fear mattered more than truth. Droll's eyes were wild, desperate. She's Nixari. Their hunger will never end. Jonah looked out the chamber window, toward the ridge where Naira had vanished into the dark. She was starving, he said, but what she needed most wasn't blood. He turned back to Droll. It was choice. The hunger to be Naira crouched in the long shadows of the ridgeline high above the colony. Below, floodlights cast the buildings in sterile silver. Search drones buzzed like insects over the rooftops, but she no longer felt the pulse of fear. In her chest, only clarity. The transmission was sent. The truth was in motion. She pressed her palm to the small blood-stained locket Jonah had tucked into her hand before she ran. Inside was a photo, grainy, creased from his old life, a memory of his partner, Kayla, laughing in a sunlit garden. Keep it, he had said, to remind you why we fight to feel. Naira looked up at the stars. In the silence, something old in her broke. Not pain, not rage, a yearning. For a life not driven by appetite. For a future shaped by choice. In the colony, tension sat like a storm cloud. The Galactic Ethics Council had responded to the transmission faster than anyone expected. A long-range diplomat ship dropped into orbit at dawn, its dark hull etched with the sigils of the Tri-Species Accord, Inside the council chamber, Overseer Droll paced. His security officers stood stiffly, eyes shifting. Jonah waited near the back, silent, bruised, but steady. Beside him, Dr. Strauss uploaded the last of the analysis. The chamber doors opened. From the sleek shuttle stepped an alien delegate of Fenari, all shimmering skin and fractal eyes, followed by two human advisors. The lead among them, Envoy Salen Virel, spoke with quiet authority. We've reviewed the data, the feeding, the memory sharing, the genetic degradation in the Nixeri line. This is not an isolated case of restraint. It's evidence of systemic sabotage, a species re-engineered to suffer. Droll stepped forward, stiff. With respect, Envoy, you're being misled by idealism. One anomaly doesn't excuse a galactic threat. No, Virel said. But it calls for understanding, not extermination. He turned to Jonah. Where's the Nixeri female now? Jonah's heart beat faster. She's in the Ridge Country. She ran because she knew you wouldn't see her. Virel nodded. We would like to. Atop the ridgeline, Naira waited. She had felt the ship descend, the pulse of new minds in the air. She had stayed hidden only because she needed to know if there was even the smallest space left in the galaxy where she could exist. Jonah reached her first. She turned at the sound of his breath. His coat was torn, his eyes rimmed with exhaustion, but when he smiled, she saw something else. Hope. They want to meet you. Naira stared. Not hunt me, no. Hear you. She lowered her gaze. And if I say no, then we keep running. But if you say yes, if you let them see you, we change everything. She took his hand. Then I'll try. Back at the landing field, silence swept across the assembly as Naira walked forward, cloaked, barefooted, luminous in the dawn. The council delegates did not flinch. They did not draw weapons. Instead, Virel stepped forward and bowed, not low, but long enough to mean something. You have suffered a design you never asked for, he said. We would see you freed from it. Naira's voice, quiet but firm, replied, I don't want to be feared. I want to be known. I want a cure not just for my kind's hunger, but for our isolation. Behind her, Jonah stood silent but unshaken. Virel nodded. Then we begin today. The crowd watched, stunned, as Naira reached out, offering her hand to the being who represented the stars. The moment was recorded. And later, it would be taught in schools. As the first day Peace chose to wear fangs and still be seen as worthy of love. Weeks passed. Naira was moved to a secure council ship, not a prison, but a sanctuary. Scientists began decoding the Nixeri genome. Reversal of the hunger virus would take years, maybe decades, but it was possible. Jonah was offered a choice: stay on the colony or join the ethics envoy. He didn't hesitate. He boarded the ship where Naira waited. They stood side by side at the viewing deck as the stars bent around them. I still feel it, Naira whispered. The ache, the hunger. Jonah touched her hand. I know, but now you're not facing it alone. She looked at him. And if I relapse, then I'll remind you who you are. Not a weapon, not a beast, but someone who chose me when you didn't have to. She smiled, soft and slow. And you, Jonah Kalis, are the one who gave me what I needed most. Not blood, not escape, but the permission to be seen and still loved.